We need this money. So we decided to crowdfund because as a new business, we can't necessarily go into banks and get loans like more established businesses can. We realized that we have a lot of community support, so this is a way that we can actually reach our goals, like collectively with our community.
It's about going to the people that support us. We love the fact that you do that. Help us to get to the next level. And that's why crowdfunding is important, because look at the people that support us to help us keep growing.
Crowdfunding is a great resource for small business. Not the easiest thing to do though, right? I think there's a lot of things out there that people gravitate towards that think they're top of mind, right? So things like crowdfunding, angel investing, impact investing, right? If you go to any technical assistance forum or workshop, they're like, oh, there's these great options. But they're not the easiest path to navigate, right? And so as a business, you have to ask yourself a couple things, like how quickly do I need this money? What's it gonna cost me? Can I afford it? And am I prepared for the ask with respect to like documentation and whatnot, right? There's different flavors of lenders for different types of businesses. So I would say, crowdfunding is a great avenue if you have like the means and exposure and are willing to kind of take the time to go that route, essentially.
Historically, often, access to capital has been very extractive, and much more in certain communities than others. Where real estate folks are making money off of gentrifying communities, and the folks that are moving in aren't from the community. That's extractive, and what's happening is that those communities aren't building in resilience by supporting what already exists, serving those communities that were there decades before, where now the next bank lender might be enabling more extractive resources than actually keeping the community glued together.
Really boils down to just the way that access to capital works for all businesses, right? Some of the immediate barriers for lending have to do with things that you can't necessarily control, things like time in business, right? A lot of lenders will not even look at your application until you've had at least 3 years in business, that you've been established. In addition to that, there's some industries that are deemed more high risk than others. So anyone dealing in food has a much rougher time trying to find a lender. There's also a lot of options for folks that are looking for capital, and they're not all good ones. One of the biggest obstacles for small businesses nowadays is that they run into high cost predatory lending, right? And so there's this feeling, because I can't go to my bank now due to maybe time in business or my credit, there's these folks that will help me over here, but it comes at a cost, right? There's merchant cash advance, and the thing about small business lending is that it's not necessarily regulated in the same way that consumer finance is. So you see APRs upwards of 50, 60, I've seen them as high as 280%, that make it really difficult to not necessarily get the financing, but maintain.
Black entrepreneurs in particular, they get less than 1% of the funding that is out there, business funding or business capital, right? They get less than 1% of all the total capital that's out there that's going to new entrepreneurs. That's the biggest barrier that I see, is that because we're so undercapitalized, when we go to the table for these follow-on funding options, right, we're competing against our peers who have more resources, right? They have more capital, so they can get to bigger traction points or milestones, as they would say, quicker than we would. So it just takes us a little bit longer.
So I think one of the issues that our Black entrepreneurs also face is that, unlike our peers, we're not allowed to fail forward. So when it comes to funding, we have to be perfect out of the gate. And that's something that we're battling on top of everything else. So we don't have the capital, we don't have the resources, and we're not allowed to necessarily pivot our ideas, whereas our colleagues or other entrepreneurs are able to kind of do that. So if Bradley's idea doesn't necessarily work the first time, he's able to, rework it and still meet with the same people, whereas we may lose that traction if we're not perfect right out the gate.
There is this level of pressure for Black entrepreneurs, like when we do get access to a resource, let's say we do get grant capital, we do get funding, it's like you have to like be a success, right? And you have to figure this out. There's like a tremendous amount of pressure because the thought process is that if you mess up, right, that means the door is going to be closed for so many other Black entrepreneurs. They're going to say, see, here you go, I funded this one, and what happened? Meanwhile, we see so many other folks who they come with this idea on the napkin and they literally like, it's just throw the money at them. And then we realize they didn't even build anything, right? Like there's major things, but then it's okay. It's okay for them to claim bankruptcy, close up shop, and then start another business again, and they're getting the same amount of like capital once again, right?
One of the challenges of a business that is just starting out is that whether you're looking at a bank lender or an angel investor or a venture capitalist, they're going to say, I want to see proof of concept. I want to see validation. These are all the tagline, market validation. I want to see that you have traction. That's another big one before we invest. And you know what? I don't have a problem with those models. I know what banks are trying to accomplish. You need to have repayment capacity. Yep. Can you repay the loan? So, if you don't have revenue, that's going to be really tough for a bank to give you a loan. And when it comes to venture capital, that's a very specific model that is built on hockey stick growth. And if your company is not looking to scale and scale quickly or sell, but you just want to grow organically over time and build a company that serves your community, that's not a match for them. So what's left? You can crowdfund. So what does it do is it gives a bridge. And it does this at all different levels. I think people really think of it only as that beginning, like, oh, when I'm just starting out. Mm-hmm. But when you're looking to access different types of capital, there are different, rungs on the ladder you're trying to reach. So I talked to a producer once who said, if you were a film production studio and you had someone come to you with a script and said, this is a really great script, you should produce it. And the other one came to you and said, I have this really great script. I've pre-sold tickets to the film already. Which one would you invest in? You'd invest in the one that had already sold tickets to the film that hasn't even been made yet.
Guaranteed audience.
And that's something that crowdfunding can do for someone who's looking for an angel investor. That angel investor still wants to see that your community wants what you're creating, that your customers are out there. And for banks, when you launch your campaign, you're generating revenue, you're getting customers. A lot of banks, traditional bank lending, you need to be in business for 2 years. So how are you going to make it to 2 years? It's exciting to me to see all the different ways that crowdfunding can fill the gaps and work together with traditional capital to help businesses get where they need to go.
So I think there's still a disconnect with capital and funding to mission-based businesses. I think you can do both. You can make money and you can do good. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make money and do really good things.
Whether some rich venture capital firm invests in us or not.